Welcome to Edinburgh Art Lovers, where I'm going to be bringing you a few vlogs from this wonderful city linked to the Edinburgh International Art Festival. I've been offline for a couple of weeks because I've also been in Hamburg. So over the next week, starting today, expect to see lots of art from both Edinburgh, which you can hopefully see behind me, and from Hamburg. I'm super excited to be bringing a series of vlogs to you, starting with the show that I want to bring you first from Edinburgh. It's probably the one I'm most excited about. It's focusing on the work of artist Andy Goldsworthy. It's called 50 Years, and it promises to be the biggest ever celebration of his long career. It's at the Royal Scottish Academy on Princes Street, and it's on until the 2nd of November. And I'm really excited about this show, which is, amongst many, the big hit probably of the summer at the Edinburgh Festival. Now, Andy Goldsworthy, it's fair to say, has never really been a critical darling in his years of producing work. And so the big question I have for this show is, does this finally establish Goldsworthy's reputation in the top echelons of British artists? I hope it does. He's an artist who works with the land. Some might call him a land artist, some might call him a landscape artist. I love his use of organic materials. And there's this, as I say, this promises to be the biggest exhibition of his works in the Britain to date. So I'm beyond excited about this. I'm going to bring you everything because I know not all of you viewers will be able to come up to Edinburgh. So this is going to be a full exploration of the exhibition, and come and join me as we head to the Royal Scottish Academy for a show by Andy Goldsworthy called 50 Years, which is on until the 2nd of November. And amongst the many posters for the Fringe, there we go, Andy Goldsworthy in the middle there. The show packs a punch from the start, and as you enter the gallery and ascend to the sculpture court, you see this work, Wool Runner, made of sheep's fleece, thorns and sheep netting. And this work refers to the wool that is constantly discarded before shearing season in Dumfriesshire, where Goldsworthy has lived since the 1980s. And the coloured markings that you see here relate to the markings that farmers put on sheep to identify them. At the top of the stairs is this work, one of my favourites from the gallery. It's called Fence. And what's really interesting is from afar, and maybe even from here, it looks a beautiful kind of screen between the sculpture gallery and the main gallery spaces. And it's only when you get closer that you see that this is actually made of barbed wire. It kind of gives you, a real shock in a way when you get up close. And Goldsworthy says this reflects his own experience of making art outside, in the fact that sometimes he's asked to stop producing the works that he is. I suppose it refers to the fact that in Britain the countryside is often a divided and fenced off place. The final work we see in the sculpture court are these sheep paintings. And what Goldsworthy does is he's nailed down canvases in a field and placed a mineral block at the centre. The sheep feed off the block, bringing the mud and detritus of their everyday life to the painting. There's obviously a randomness. The painting can be changed by the weather, by the actions of the sheep. And after a few days, the mineral block is removed, leaving these works created by sheep. Gravestones is a set piece work produced specifically for 2025. Then the stones you're looking at now have been collected from the detritus of 108 graveyards in Dumfries and Galloway. They're basically the stones that have come out of the ground as graves are being dug. And you can see there's a straight line, and I'm wondering, Goldsworthy describes this work as an affirmation of life, but I'm wondering if that line is the divide between life and death. And it's actually like a prototype for a much larger work you can just see going past now, whereby he's going to be potentially placing these stones in a field, many, many more than we see in the gallery at the Royal Scottish Academy. And there's a really personal note to this. Goldsworthy's ex-wife and the mother of his children is buried in one of these Dumfries and Galloway graveyards. And we see documentary evidence in room 7, which links to this sculpture sculptural installation piece in room one. And we're made aware that the stones we've seen in room one are just a fraction of the stones that Galloway is going to collect. We see Skylight making full use of the gallery space. Um, this work is made of reed mace that was gathered from Angus and from various locks in Dumfries and Galloway in 2024, and the seed head has been removed so that the stalks can rise from floor to ceiling. And Goldsworthy says that he sees this as a companion piece to gravestones, which you've just seen, with one being earthbound and one reaching to the sky. And he made it in the hope, to quote, that the skylight will be cleared and cleaned to allow light into the building to illuminate the work. In 2019, Goldsworthy was invited to produce a work for the Rockefeller Center in New York, and those of you who have been there will know that there's a variety of flagpoles outside, often flying flags of different countries. And when Goldsworthy visited, he explains in the brochure that they were flying the flags of the 50 United States, and his work replaces each flag with a blank flag that will be dyed with the reddest earth he could get from that state, according to the brochure. Goldsworthy points out that flags often symbolise land that's been fought over or fought and won, and that flags can often be linked to earth in quite a confrontational way. The fact that these flags are also similar and is very hard to tell the difference between them, and certainly to identify which state they've come from, is meant to illustrate connectivity, community, and the things that we have in common, as opposed to division. And the works that you're seeing here are works that draw on connections between the earth, iron, and the body, and they're kind of linked to the works that you're going to see in the next room. The dominant color in room four is red. Red earth that is made red from iron. This red earth was dug from the Lowther Hills in Dumfriesshire. And for the exhibition, the brochure explains that clay-rich earth was dried, crushed, and mixed with water and passed through a sieve to remove stones, dried once more and reconstituted into a workable material. It was applied to the wall, cracking as it dried. And Goldsworthy says the earth is a vivid red because of its high iron content, and makes the point our blood is also red because of the iron in it. It's a reminder that we're bound to the earth, which is a huge theme of this exhibition. These two canvases were stretched over plywood tables during the making of Red Wall. And the people working on the table weren't aware that their canvas may become a work of art in its own right. But these works have been hung opposite Red Wall. Goldsworthy never sentimentalizes nature, and Hair, Blood and Snow is an example of that. Unfortunately, Goldsworthy hit and killed a hare in a car accident, and he picked up the hare and took it home with him, and he removed its guts. It seemed to have an extraordinary amount of blood, he describes. He mixed the blood with the snow, which he put inside the hare's stomach before hanging it up. The snow then melted and dripped through its mouth and nose onto a piece of paper he laid on the floor below. He did this three times, and made the three drawings that you've just seen. When you first enter room five and see Oak Passage, it seems a mess, as you can see here. And it's only when you go round to the front that you see it's actually incredibly ordered. There's a path to be walked through it. And for me, this spoke of the constant human desire to order nature from chaos. The oak that you see in Oak Passage is made with branches from wind-fallen trees and boughs, many that were brought down by a storm, Ewan, and some are leftovers from trees that were cut up for firewood. But what Goldsworthy wants us to do is look at the floor of the gallery as well, because that's also made of oak, and much more polished oak, as you can just see peeking out of the corner of that picture. And obviously he's trying to want us to see the forest in the gallery and the gallery in the forest, to sort of avoid that disconnect which has become so common. By the way, one of my favourite works in terms of beauty, as I'll explain a little bit more, was this fern drawing made specifically for this exhibition, and it's one of two big works which you've seen, which stand either side of Oak Passage. The exhibition begins to change after room 5. Rooms 1 to 5, plus the stairway entrance and the sculpture court, are full of works produced by Goldsworthy, often very recently. Whereas from room 6 onwards, we begin to see more and more documentary work evidence of work that's been created outside of the gallery. And Fallen Elm, a project that's been going on since 2009, is an example of that. Um, this elm, Goldsworthy explains, is a short walk from his house, and it died of Dutch elm disease and stood for some time before eventually falling in 2009. He found it collapsed, and over the years has worked with it, exploring the cracks and fissures and splinters that were caused when the tree fell. Album contains 90 photos, which explores Goldsworthy's work on this dead tree throughout the seasons and over the years and decades since 2009. Hanging Stones explores one of Goldsworthy's most epic and enduring projects. Hanging Stones itself, the name, derives from Hanging Stone Lane and Hanging Stone Farm in Northdale, near Rosedale Abbey in North Yorkshire, which is the location of the project. And 9 existing unused derelict buildings plus 1 new building have been rebuilt and connected by a path to create a single work of art. Goldsworthy explains that Northdale is wild but not wilderness. There's massive evidence of human habitation there. And he's chosen existing buildings because they bear the imprint of the people who have lived there before. We see drawings of each of these buildings which have been brought back to life and restored by Goldsworthy. And he's very keen to point out that this is not like a quote unquote sculpture trail, but this is a one continuous piece of art. And he's produced a few works linked to this as well, of some of which you saw in room 3. I have to say, this made me want to get straight to Northdale in North Yorkshire to experience the rugged landscape and to experience these works. It's surely one of Britain's most special pieces of outdoor art. Snowballs, and especially snowballs in summer, are a big part of Goldsworthy's legend. And on the stairs, don't miss, as you're descending from the first floor down to the basement galleries, two works which are linked to these snowball works. There are 4 rooms in the lower galleries. This bit of the exhibition is a very different beast to what you see upstairs, because it's mainly a combination of documentary evidence, video evidence like you're watching here, and photography about Goldsworthy's career, especially in the 70s, 80s and 90s, although there are some works like these ones that are more recent as well. Interestingly, in room 9, we kind of go back to black and white photography, and we know we're right at the start of his career. Goldsworthy studied art at Preston Polytechnic, which is now the University of Central Lancaster, which was actually based in Lancaster, and he lived in Morecambe. And the exhibition explains that from very, very early on, he felt constrained by galleries and the studio. He wanted to create work outside, and he's been doing that since the start of his career. And obviously it's impossible to bring all of these works into the gallery space. Many of them are temporary and no longer exist. And so this downstairs section is a fantastic opportunity to engage with Goldsworthy. It's the reason the show is a full retrospective, and it's called 50 Years. So I'm going to leave these works to speak for themselves and see you with my thoughts on this exhibition at the end.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that exploration of Andy Goldsworthy's 50 years, especially if you're not able to visit the show. And I really hope that if you're in Edinburgh between now and November, this inspires you to visit. Because I asked the question in the title of the video, it has this show finally established Andy Goldsworthy as one of our greatest contemporary artists? And I think hopefully you'll agree that the answer is a thumping yes. Indeed, I left this show and walked down Princes Street wondering, A, why there hadn't been a show of this scale in the UK before, considering the fascinating work that Goldsworthy produces. And secondly, I wondered, will it be like Doho Su, where Edinburgh put on a fantastic show 2 years ago and then Tate Modern, in this case, followed suit this year? Will that be the same with Andy Goldsworthy? Will we see him filling the spaces of the Hayward Gallery, Tate Britain or Tate Modern as a vlogger who predominantly covers the London art scene? That would bring me great pleasure. And it was so good to see this show in Edinburgh, in what I thought was actually a really strong Edinburgh International Art Festival. I always think about these shows in terms of the good, the bad and the beautiful. And if we start with the good, there was so much good to this show. First of all, I was just captivated by the diverse range of materials used. Yes, wood, stone, pretty commonly used materials, but also hare's blood, sheep's urine. There was so many different materials. Some of it kind of smelt, some of it made you want to reach out and touch. Obviously you couldn't. And so he's constantly creating with the materials often that nature gives him, and I absolutely love that. And that links to my second point, which is that this show fundamentally asks us, in my opinion, to reconsider our relationship with nature. And it did that most powerfully in the work The Oak Passage, because the full title of the work should be Oak Passage on an Oak Floor. Now, the Oak Passage work is like it's an Instagrammable artwork. People were shoving themselves out of the way almost to kind of get clips of it. But, how often do we consider the floor that the gallery is made out of? And it forced us to look down and think, yeah, this has come from a beautiful oak tree too. It's a beautiful, beautiful floor. And, everywhere, every aspect of our lives is powered by nature. This phone, which I'm speaking into now, has been produced using materials from all over the world. And so he's asking us to stop and consider our relationship with nature. He never ever sentimentalizes our relationship with nature. He shows it in its beauty and its brutality as well. And I really enjoyed that and got a huge amount out of it throughout all of the works as well. Thirdly, I love the fact, and I think this is probably why his reputation amongst art critics is maybe not as strong as it maybe could have been in the past. And I think that's because he's an artist who's very hard to pin down. He's a land artist in many ways, but also a landscape artist certainly. But then he's a sculptor, he's a painter and a drawer. He's a video artist. He's an installation artist. He's producing. He's incredibly prolific in producing works in many different mediums, and so I love that. I was constantly engaged by the variety of ways in which he expresses his art, and I think that's fantastic. I also love the kind of imaginative breadth of his concepts, whether it's the gravestones concept or the fallen elm. There are projects, some of which are really small and take place on one day, and some of which span years. And it's a really strong show conceptually, in my opinion, as well. I must also say, and this links back to the Oak Passage work, but also to the Skylight work as well, I love the way that he's produced a huge range of new works for this show. And that was really important. And the way that he engages with the building, just like he engages with the natural world where he produces most of his art, using the skylight of the Royal Scottish Academy or the floor, especially in those upper rooms. There's a real sense of an artist engaging. And it's really important to say that lots of the spectacular works were created specifically for this show, for reasons I'll come on to in a second. So that's really great. You won't see them anywhere else. In terms of the bad, I mean, there was very little bad about this show. Hopefully, you can tell from my enthusiasm that I absolutely loved it. Obviously, the only slight downside is that, Goldsworthy is not a studio artist or a gallery artist. He's an artist whose greatest works, in my opinion, have been produced in nature, and so obviously you can only get that to a certain extent. But I'm adding the caveat, obviously, as I've just mentioned, that he has got round that by producing work specifically for this show, so that we get a sense of the works in the natural world coming into the gallery, and I think that worked really well. It's an upside down show, so you see the newest works first, and then you kind of go backwards, if you like, to the start of his career downstairs. There's a bit of a split personality nature of the show. Upstairs is the wow, the spectacular. Downstairs is much more about documentary evidence and photography, but I enjoyed that. And in terms of the beautiful, I mean, there were so many works that I could have chosen. I love the delicacy of this work using fern leaves. It's a work which won't last, but it was so beautiful to stand up close to it and see the ferns curling and twisting. And it was a beautiful, big installation piece, uniquely produced for this show. But in terms of an absolute favourite work, but I'm actually going for fence. I mean, this barbed wire kind of sculpture, is it really? I suppose, is really clever because it looks beautiful. It looks like an incredibly intricate screen, and as you get closer and closer, you realise it's rusty, dangerous barbed wire, and it's a work which kind of sets the tone for the show. The second work you see in the show, so I love that. I found that really spectacular. Overall, I'm going to be giving this show a 9.5 out of 10. It's undoubtedly going to be one of the UK highlight shows of the year, and I can't wait to hear your opinions on it, especially if you've been. Do post in the comments, or if you're an Andy Goldsworthy fan who maybe hasn't been able to go, let me know what you think about this show. And if you enjoyed this kind of art, there's two vlogs I really want to guide you to. One by Italian artist Giuseppe Pannone, which has been on at Serpentine. He kind of works in the same way, in a way, as Andy Goldsworthy. They're kind of kindred spirits in some ways. And then the Anya Galacio show, which is no longer on at Turner Contemporary in Margate, was really spectacular. And again, she brought the natural world into the gallery, so you might want to explore that one as well. Thank you ever so much for watching, and stay tuned for a series of vlogs from Edinburgh and then Hamburg, as I said at the start of this vlog, as I've been out exploring art beyond London. But I will be definitely aiming to get to the Millet show over the next week or two, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for your ongoing support and for watching this vlog.